I've got Tristan Webb with me today, and we're going to be talking about cyber insurance and all the pros and cons and misconceptions of how important that insurance is to every single business that trades and uses technology or the internet or both. So I hope you find it interesting and you have some interesting insights to take away from the conversation we're about to have. Tristan, we're going to pick on your knowledge and years of experience. And it's something that is particularly close to my heart because it's part of my business. But cyber insurance, it's something that many clients, prospects, business owners, it's just not on their radar. And I think the feedback I get is it's something that seems to feel tagged on or bolted on right at the very end when the insurance renewal comes up, and it's like they've gone through all of the contents and the buildings and the professional liability, all directors come, and then at the very end it's like, would you like some cyber insurance? So I don't know whether my gut feel is right when it comes to how cyber insurance is being perceived. But what's your take on the industry, businesses, attitudes, awareness?
Well, it's a transition, right? So you go back 10 years ago, probably was a tag on, and with every passing year, it probably becomes more front of mind.
Okay.
Should become more front of mind. So you're sort of not wrong, but it's not static. It's an ever-moving landscape, and it's only going one way. And the direction of travel is it becomes more and more important every year. And so the reality is you're more likely to suffer a cyber loss, if you like, than you are having your contents damaged.
Yeah.
You're more likely to suffer a cyber theft than an actual theft.
100%.
And so as the awareness builds, clients generally, they're habitual. They're used to buying a certain product suite, if you like, and it's a packaged up public employers liability and, like you say, professional indemnity and contents and stuff. And this should form part of that package. But an awareness of it, like all insurance, it's like, well, do you face a risk? And clients often feel as though, cyber's for the Marks and Spencers and for the e-trading pawns. And we see so many SME, small local losses that are mostly email intercepts.
Yeah.
People paying invoices that looked exactly right, and they've been hacked. So it's something that you should have an awareness of. I think there's tiers of protection you can put in place, and cyber insurance is just one of those tiers. Mm-hmm. And it comes after common sense, training staff, making sure your patches are up to date, your software's up to date, making sure that your hardware has got the right protection that's built into it. And most of that now is becoming compulsory anyway with the insurance policy. So a bit like you can't really insure your high value home unless it's got an alarm.
Got you.
Well, we're not going to give you a high amount of insurance cover unless you've put the right protections in place. So it's all linking together now. Okay. And whereas in the past only maybe one or two insurance companies had those conditions, now most have got those conditions in some form or another, and they're getting more stringent every year.
Okay.
So insurance is really, really important, but it's the when everything else has gone wrong, that's when it steps in to protect you.
Do you think? I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think MSPs like us could do more to promote the positive gains of having cyber insurance, or at least trying to attain the levels to qualify for cyber insurance?
For sure, yeah. I think, I think it's a client's perception, and your protection that you're putting in place is going to be great for the client.
Yeah. And
then what? Because I think there's this guarantee that no matter how much protection that you put in place, you're never 100% secure.
No, that is true.
And so in the event that something does get beyond all of these tiers of protection, how exposed do you feel you are? And if you only feel you have a minor exposure, you can buy a small amount of cover. You don't have to spend a lot of money on that cover.
Yeah.
But if you're a large tech firm and you have millions exposed, then absolutely you want to put a level of protection in there.
Yeah.
And insurers aren't daft. So at the end of the day, if there's no risk, it's cheap.
Yeah.
And that's why it's cheap, because there's a very little chance of it happening.
Yeah.
And if something's expensive, it probably should get your attention,
Yeah.
because the insurer is saying, hold on, this is a high risk probability. If it's high risk, you probably should be more driven.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I did some research a few years ago for a cyber talk we did. I mean, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, something like that. And the loss figure through cyber related fraud and activity for Dorset businesses alone was 30 million in 1 year.
Yeah.
And that was a few years ago. And I know just from the stats that we see in some of our tools and our models that since then, the attacks have increased by about 65%.
It's huge. And we see things, so Dorset-based businesses that have, without giving too much away, wholesale company that's paid an invoice to a supplier. It wasn't big, it was £16,000, I think that loss was. But that's small, that was a 2-employee business. And cyber insurance protected and paid. A recruitment firm that paid a temporary wage roll to a construction firm, that was close to £50,000. That was another email intercept. So we see quite a lot of losses. What's interesting as a broker that has cyber as part of their product portfolio, if you like, is that we'll do a gap analysis every year for a client. And it's basically hey, a bit like you mentioned earlier, here's the other things that you don't buy, that you have an exposure in, are you interested in? And, quite often cyber's on there, and we'll put a figure on it, and the client, no, maybe not this year, we'll look at it next year. And that's fine. My job is to bring it to your attention, to tell you a risk exists, and that this is how much it will cost to fix that risk. Client's job is to decide whether they want it or not. And we had one client that 2 years in a row, we said, no, don't want it. And then the third year they took it was only about an £800 policy, and then had over £100,000 loss. I'm sure the underwriter doesn't thank me for it, but the client is very, very, very thankful for that cover being in place. Like that loss is big.
I mean, what disturbs me more than anything sometimes is, and I'd say probably a month ago, we were approached to get involved with a company that had just potentially lost £86,000. And it was in the midst of it all happening. And during the discussions, I was trying to ascertain what remedial works had been taken. Do they know the cause? Do they know exactly, have they traced back to how this has happened? And no.
Yeah.
So to me, the exposure was still live, as far as I'm concerned, because these organisations, and they are organisations, they're not one man band in his bedroom anymore. It can be 20, 30, 40 people working on a particular breach. And to me, that's still a live breach scenario. So it could happen again, if not now, in another month's time, they could do it again. And so we were in the process of costing up some immediate actions that would make it, that would close a lot of the open doors that we very quickly could see. And again, not giving away details, but they were quibbling over 1,500 quid. And it was just, they didn't want to spend that much when they just potentially lost £86,000. And we quickly realised, you can't help everyone. But I'm continually shocked at a business owner's appreciation of the risk. And as much as we see it, so we know what's possible, and it scares the living daylights out of us, and we share that information, but it just doesn't land.
No, I think, so I've come across this before, because a lot of clients, we can't, rightly so, say which clients have had which losses.
No.
But that would be useful. And it would also be useful for the clients that have had the losses to be able to share the losses they've had. And I know, this is years ago when Jake was Dorset cyber officer.
Jake
he used to try and get clients that had had losses to at least be able to anonymously mention that they've had an attack, because it was really useful to try and get that into the public domain to say
Makes it real.
it makes it real, and it's happening all the time to the neighbours, and there was a real cost. And I understand the embarrassment of, oh crikey, I was able to weather that £100,000 storm, but I don't want anyone to know that there was
It's
a potential
reputation.
risk. So I grasp it, but it's a shame, because actually I understand why you wouldn't want it, but it would be really helpful if you could just get these overviews. But in many cases, like it won't even get to police level. They'll be like, well, we've had a loss. We've got an IT firm in that have solved the vulnerabilities that we've had in the system, and now we've got insurance in. But we don't want anyone to know we've had a loss. We had a large accountancy firm, not local, that had a breach just prior to financial year end. So they knew exactly when. So it sat on the system for ages. But they knew exactly when to optimize the most ransomware.
Yeah, and it from our perspective, it's human engineering, psychological human engineering. The campaigns that are the most successful, which is why we're trying to promote heavily the training side, the cyber awareness training side of what we do. But still, even that, out of all of the clients and businesses that we work with, we only have one client that's adopted it.
Yeah, so Hiscox have got the Cyber Clear Academy. If you take a Hiscox cyber policy out, they either reduce the excess or reduce the rate, depending on how many staff. I think over 50% staff have to have completed this. There's still quite a low saturation rate in that.
50%.
Yeah, and it's still, but that's you're only as weak as your weakest. Only as strong as your weakest link in the chain.
Absolutely.
And so yes, it's the people element of it that is the most important part to crack.
100%.
And I think people try and overcomplicate it with, the amount of times that I've had an engaging conversation with a client and they say, well, we don't really trade on the internet. So, do you send an email? And because that's the most vulnerable area. But their perception, because cyber is a generic, it doesn't really explain it particularly well. And of course, cyber insurance can be so radically different between Aviva and Hiscox and OSR and all of the different sort of carriers that you're likely to use. You really need to have an understanding of, well, okay, if something goes wrong, what's that something? What's that something?
And also, I think, and again, this is more your area than mine. I think buying cyber insurance is one thing, but actually buying cyber insurance that will actually cover you should the worst happen is another. And I'm sure your firm does do it. And when you're selling cyber insurance, you're as much as you can, you're ensuring that the person buying it knows you've got to meet this criteria. Otherwise,
it's not going to
pay.
Yeah.
But do you think there are instances where people are buying cyber insurance that they're then not following up and making sure that they're meeting the criteria that's required for it to be valid?
Yeah. So Aviva have got a really lovely "what we need you to do" document.
Right.
It makes it so simple, but they're one of the few. Most insurers will have. So I think you'll find if you look at page 17, subclause 32.a, all of the security conditions are laid out. Well, that's 17 of a 40-page document. We'll highlight it for a client, but I can't guarantee always that you've read it. And I can't guarantee that for example, sometimes it's not them, it's their IT. They might have an IT guy.
Or might not even have IT.
Or they might not even have IT. They might have an outsourced solution and they need to sort of go to those. So insurers have got a little better. So again, and all insurers work slightly differently, but some will regularly go to the client's domain and say, and we've done a quick review and we can see you've actually got vulnerabilities here, here, and here. And so Coalition, for example, if you're a higher risk client, they'll do you a full report on your vulnerabilities and what they want you to do. And they'll do it every year. So even at renewal, because what will happen is people will tick a box saying, I've done it once. It's a rolling thing. And so if an update has come,
they haven't done it.
You have to stay on top of these things.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress, keeping clients advised and up to date of the risks.
And I just my ethos when we started the business those years ago, the ethos was to help people. We wanted to help people with their tech. We wanted to help people. Yes, the business has changed and it's developed and it's grown, but our ethos is still the same. And I feel in my gut that I just want to do so much more to help point clients in the right direction and hold their hand to get to be able to run their businesses in a safe environment. And I just feel as though I'm personally not doing enough to point them in the direction of trying to get cyber insurance and trying to reach the levels, because it's a win-win for them.
Yeah.
It's as they go through that journey of plugging those holes, I sleep better at night because I know someone's been helped out there and I know their business is in a good position. And if they do have a breach, they're going to get paid out and they're going to be fine and they're going to be able to recover their business quickly. But at the moment, I feel it's something in the back of my mind that I'm just not attending to. If there are businesses out there watching this now and they're interested in cyber insurance, can they get hold of you, or what's their first step?
So yes, speak to us, speak to a person.
And how do they find you, Tristan?
So do you know what the easiest thing is? Give me a buzz, phone me, have an actual conversation.
Okay.
And so you can email me by all means, and I will call you at a convenient time. That's fine. But I think you can look us up on the website, which is aspireinsure.co.uk.
Okay.
You could email me at tristandw@aspireinsure.co.uk.
Or phone number?
Or phone number, which is 0333 222 1182.
Perfect. So there's no excuse. They've got everything.
But it's a conversation, because I can say, do you understand that? And I want my client to say, I'm not quite clear. I can then pare it back another layer.
Yeah.
Whereas we have got multi-million-pound tech companies that I'll have a board meeting, walk away, be driving home in the car, and someone will phone and say, can you just explain that to me again? I didn't want to admit in the
in the meeting. Yeah, for sure.
So I should know this subject inside out and back to front, and really do come away from the fact that we're trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
Because actually, I sit last. Insurance is the protection that comes after the people have been trained and after the software and hardware has been put to us at the correct standard. Then insurance sits behind it.
Right.
And so, and that's my education piece with most of my clients who say, should I have cyber insurance? And you're like, sure. What have you done about those two things first?
Yeah.
Because actually, cyber's kind of pointless if you haven't put those in place.
100%. 100%. That makes it very succinct. And my last point, and I think I know the answer to this, and again, it's for the audience that's listening to this. Hopefully, they've stuck with us for this period of time. Can you think of any business that currently uses technology, is on the internet, that does not need or would not benefit from having cyber insurance?
No.
It's
a really simple, even down to if you use emails, which everybody does.
Yeah.
Those are the most likely intercepts. So that's the starting point.
Yeah.
And then it only seems to get more complex.
100%. I mean, whether you're a charity or non-profit, whatever, if you're trading as a business and you're using technology and the internet, doesn't matter how big you are, one person, 100 people, 1,000 people, you can't get away with it. You have to have cyber insurance.
And put a cost to it. And so if I was to say to you, it's £10,000, you might go, I'm not spending that.
But what's the loss?
But like I said earlier, is that if it's expensive, there was probably a high risk.
Yeah.
But it might not be. It probably, for an SME, it's going to be somewhere between sort of, I don't know, a smaller spend, sub £1,000.
Yeah.
But the reality is that put a cost to it.
Yeah.
And then you can work that into a budget. Easy enough. And if you need to work it into your budget, let me look at all the other stuff. Maybe we can find savings there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, even for our cyber insurance, it was in the per year cost, it was about just under £400, 300 and something pounds. But the benefit of having it, should something go wrong, as long as we meet the criteria, which we obviously do, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. But I think there is that, I mean, we've talked about it, but there is that real mental block over paying for an insurance that's an element that is perceived as being a far distant threat, when actually, from what we're seeing, that threat is one email away. And you won't know for 3 months.
No, so you'll have seen every major fire in the news, because the Echo will put it out on the websites and it'll be all over your social media news. You do not know about the volume of cyber incidents that happen in our county
I know.
Just in our county.
Yeah. Just going back 6 years, say, and these are stats you can find in the public domain. A breach, you'd become aware of a breach within a week or 2 weeks of access being made. Now it's between 2 and 3 months. So they're that confident now, they're sitting and gathering lots of information about your business and who you're interacting with and all the rest of it. And don't even get me started on supply chain threats. And they'll have so much information gathered in that period of time. When they strike, you're pretty much defenseless. And what generally tends to happen is they know that there'll be a panic circle of, headless chickens running around, and then it will drop off again because you'll think, oh, we're fine, and they'll strike again. And it's financially terrifying. It's financially terrifying. But again, I just don't think, hopefully this is helping, but I don't think it's, highlighted enough either at government level, at business chamber level, or any sort of local organisation level. I don't think it's talked about enough.
No, I think things like this help. I think being able to have conversations with clients where we remove the perception, because I am a broker and I do sell cyber insurance, so there is a goal at the end of the day, and I need to kind of make sure that I'm doing that. There's twofold. There's other people that provide this. You don't need to go to me, but I can have this conversation with you and explain where the risks lie and put that element around the cost. Just have that conversation with your broker about putting a cost to it.
Yeah,
that's the important thing. But have the conversation and talk to other businesses that are out, because when you run a business, you take on board, you've got various risks, and that's, you have your HR risks and you have your liability risks and all of these other things. And the cyber one is one that, because people are suffering losses, but it's kept quiet. I would imagine kind of like an HR issue. Nobody wants to advertise their HR issues that are going. And so, but it's sort of keeping it quiet is not helping promote awareness.
No, definitely not. Tristan, again, brilliant. Thank you so much. Brilliant talking to you about it.
Cheers.
It's been brilliant having you here today. And let's stay in touch and keep talking.
Cool.